the Lamjathang camp is now talking to Kokomi, who declared a war against cookies, basically. And they're talking to Arambai Tengol, which
Mhm,
has executed that war for the
mhm.
last 2.5 years. So what has happened? Has Arambai Tengol apologized for all the things they have done? Has Kokomi said that they made an error in declaring national war?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel, PP Chongloy Talk Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's episode is so very special because we're going to talk about the infamous Michael Lamzathang and his team on their visit to the Valley Imphal. And for today's speaker or special guest, I want Professor Uday Reddy from Birmingham University. So he's here with me. Thank you so much for joining all the way from UK. How are you and how is life going on?
Very well, Pippi. Glad to see you again.
Thank you. This is the second time that you're here on my talk show. Thank
That's great.
you for your time, despite your busy schedule. You're preparing for your retirement and stuff like that. So, thank you again. Like I've mentioned, today we're going to talk about the infamous Michael Lamzathang and his team. You being a professor from one of the most renowned university, your analysis. Tell me more about this, Michael Lamzathang and his team.
Okay, so Michael Lamjathang himself, I don't know very much because, I'm not from Manipur,
Mhm,
but he has come to Twitter Space meetings once in a while, so we talk to him.
mhm,
And he also goes to Meite's Twitter Space meetings, so we heard him speak there.
mhm,
And of course, he has also appeared on television, right? So he's also a BJP spokesperson, BJP maybe general secretary for the state, some such position he has in BJP. And therefore, he kind of speaks on behalf of, Biren Singh government on his policies, etc. Right? So that is what we know about him. But before that, I presume he was either a general secretary or a president of the Thado Students Association.
mhm,
Um, Now we also know that there is a Cookie Students Organization.
mhm,
So the Thada Students Association, TSA, it is called. They claim that they are completely separate. They have no relation to KSO, and in fact, they seemed antagonistic to KSO. Right. So that was a bit of a surprise to me. So I mean, there's a lot of tension between these two terms, Thado and Cookie. Which was a surprise to me when I, first started talking to the community, because they're essentially the same people, right, who go
mhm,
by two different terms. And the Cookie term is more inclusive. It's a bigger community, and Thado term is a little more narrow. And understanding the difference between Thado and Cookie, therefore, I mean, when we get into it, I can explain that a bit more. But what has been happening during the last 1 year, kind of after the intensity of the violence in Manipur has cooled down, is that Lamjathang seems to have been instrumental in mobilizing some groups of people
mhm,
who claim to be representatives of the Thado community, but they have never made clear which community, which parts of community they represent. And now they had a meeting in Imphal calling themselves Thado Inpi Manipur, which basically means that they represent the entire Thado community of Manipur. But there is no evidence for that. And then they take positions and they make statements, and they have apparently held talks with Meitei community groups, with Kokomi and even Arambai Tengol, whereas almost all the cookies that I know, whether they're Thado or not Thado, they shudder at the mention of Arambai Tengol, right? Because they hold Arambai Tengol to have been responsible for almost all the atrocities that have been committed during the Manipur violence. So here is this group of people who claim to represent the Thado community, and they're negotiating with Arambai Tengol. What are they negotiating about? It's completely unclear.
mhm,
So then I started looking into, what are these organizations? What do they represent? Whom do they represent? And what I found is very, very surprising because there used to be an organization called Thado Inpi Manipur.
Mhm.
It changed its name to Thado Inpi General Headquarters in 2018. I haven't found any explicit, press statement to that effect. And I've been encouraging that organization to come forward with, clarity on this.
Mhm.
But looking at the news items, it is very clear that Thado Inpi Manipur has renamed itself as Thado Inpi General Headquarters. And the reason it has done that is because they have set up branch Thado Inpis in Kangpokpi and Chandel, right? So since there were several Thado Inpis, therefore it made sense for them to call themselves as Thado Inpi General Headquarters, GHQ.
Mhm.
They seem to be based in Churachandpur, even though, there's no explicit information to that effect. So there is no special Thado Inpi Churachandpur that I could find. But Chandel and Kangpokpi, which are the areas where there is significant concentration of Thado people, they have, local branches, which is similar to how Cookie and P also functions, right? So there's a Cookie and P Chandel, there's a Cookie and P Kangpokpi. There might be a Cookie and P for Jiribam and Tamenglong.
Tengol.
Um, Tamenglong. There's a separate Jiribam. Next to Jiribam is Tamenglong. So
Mhm.
the cookies in those two districts work together, right? So there are several such branches, and when we are monitoring news, it is important to keep in mind, who is representing whom. So in this case, I started wondering who are these people representing. So that was mentioned when this organization was formed. I think it was in November last year or March this year. They had so many meetings that things are a bit blurry. So when this organization was formed, they also formed 3 or 4 branches. One of them was Thado Inpi, Karbi Anglong, Thado Inpi Dimahasao, Thado Inpi Mizoram, and Thado Inpi Jiribam. So Thado Inpi Manipur, the so-called Thado Inpi Manipur that they have formed,
Mhm.
has 4 branches in Karbi Anglong, Dimahasao, Mizoram, and Jiribam. So these are the Thados that they represent. They don't represent the Thados in Kangpokpi. They don't represent the Thados in Chandel. They don't represent the Thados in Churachandpur. They represent some tiny fraction of Manipur's Thado community. So we can actually go and find out how many Thados there are in Jiribam. There are 500, roughly 500. That is their clientele. Those are the people that they're representing. Now, I'm very surprised that the newspapers have done no fact checking whatsoever and started calling them Thado community, which is taking positions. Right? Yesterday's newspapers were all, abuzz with these claims that peace talks are happening between Thado community and the Meitei community, which seems to be complete nonsense. This is some, tiny fraction, some small fraction of the people that call themselves Thado
Mhm.
who are involved in this organization. So it's quite fake, to tell you the truth, for these people to claim to represent the Thados of Manipur. And the fact that they're using names like Thado Inpi Manipur is a pretense. It's a way of, projecting themselves as something that they're not. They're not representing Manipur's Thado community, right? So in that sense, it is fraudulent.
Mhm.
So why are newspapers not digging into this? That is, very surprising. Has anybody gone and asked them, which Thados do you represent?
Mhm.
Of course, the term Thado itself is problematic, and we can talk about that a little bit later on.
Mhm.
But even assuming there is a community of Thados, what part of the Thado community are you representing? When they formed this Thado in P Manipur, the Thado in P General Headquarters has issued a press release saying that this organization is not in accordance with the Thado Inpi Constitution. It hasn't obtained our permission to form this organization, and therefore the organization itself is invalid. So essentially, the authoritative body of Thados in Manipur has issued a statement saying that this organization is invalid. They have no business to speak on behalf of Manipur Thados. So that is my that is my current assessment, digging into what is this Michael Lamjathang phenomenon. It is fraudulent phenomenon. They're pretending to be representing somebody, whereas they are not. They need to publish how many members they have. Okay, we should also talk a little bit about what Thado INPI means, what INPI means, but that's a bit more technical. We'll come to that later. But they need to publish whom they're representing. We need to see, a list of the people that are their members, so to speak, right? I mean, it's very easy to publish things these days, even if you don't have a website. I mean, they seem to have organized this conference in a fancy hotel, with lots of, delegates and organizations. So they have enough money to open a website. And even otherwise, they can publish things on WhatsApp and Twitter, which is what most little organizations do these days. But, if they're getting headlines in every national newspaper of India, we need to check the authenticity.
Exactly. Earlier I used to think that Thado INPI representative is Michael Lamjathang alone, but surprisingly, yesterday they were around 16 to 17 of them. That means there are some people who are actually, supporting him in his propaganda. We all know what happened in Imphal. I mean, there's no way the Kuki community can go back there, but these people, they flew back there as if nothing ever happened. It's very shocking, and it's very uncomfortable for the entire community. And regarding this Tado, according to my understanding, I am from Nagaland, so in Nagaland, we call ourselves Kuki. Under the umbrella of Kuki, there are Thado, Simte, Gangte, Waipe, and then all the sub-clans or tribes are there. And we recognize ourselves as Kuki, and we are happy to be under the umbrella of Kuki. But ever since the conflict started, and then I came to know about this Lamjathang, this infamous guy, and then he is, talking so much about Thado, and then, like I said, I thought he is the lone Thado, like representing himself, but I came to know that there are people actually supporting him. So how do we go about what is our, next step? Do we, minimize or like what do you think the Cookie MP nowadays the apex body is the KZC, Cookies or Council, but prior to that we have we do have Cookie MP Manipur, which is the apex body. So what is their role in relation to this Michael Lamjathang's team?
Well, I mean, what they do is, up to them. I don't, I don't speak for them, or I'm not a member of them. I'm just an external observer, and all I do is to understand what is happening and gather the facts and, tell that to people, right? As an academic, that's what my role is. And so from that point of view, I think we need to understand a little bit what is why are there these two terms, Thado and Cookie? What do they mean? Okay, so this is going to be a little bit technical, even for you. You're probably a Thado language speaker,
yeah,
right?
I am.
But even you might not know all the intricacies that I'm going to tell you.
Please.
So Thado,
go ahead.
So Thado was picked as the name of a language which is widely spoken in Manipur around 1900. Okay, so there was a British officer called T.C. Hodgson who studied the language and wrote a book on it, calling it Thado grammar. So the language that was being spoken by these people, okay, this is a very widely spoken language. About 10% or 8 to 10% of the population of Manipur speaks this language. Okay, so it's the largest, ethnic linguistic community in Manipur after Meiteis. So Meiteis are like 53%, and the second largest is Thado. right? As I'm saying, Thado, language speaking people. But this language was not called Thado before the British came. We don't know what they called it. They probably called it our language. You can ask your grandmother or grandfather to find out what they called that language at that time. But the British named it Thado. And why did they name it Thado? Because they thought that all the people who are speaking this language are Thados. Okay. But that is apparently not true. Thado is the name of a clan. And there are not that many people who use the name Thado as their surname. But there are several subclans of it which are current, like Singson and Singsit, and I don't know, there might be many others, who regard themselves as subclans of Thado. And they seem to have been numerous enough, and therefore British believed that Thado was the name of the entire community of these language speakers. But it turns out that that is false, right? So Thado is a clan, meaning it was founded by one of these famous chiefs. Now, cookies are, in fact, probably all tribal communities have this understanding that if some other clan had already existed before this gentleman called Thado, right? So those clans were founded by his ancestors, then it's not legitimate to call them Thados. And therefore, whether somebody is a Thado or not depends on this complicated question of who is an ancestor of whom. And even if there are siblings, apparently, the younger sibling cannot usurp the authority of the elder sibling. So there are these three largest clans, Haukip, Kipgen, and Thado and its subclans. So in one of the genealogical charts, these three people these three famous chiefs were siblings in one of the genealogical charts. There are other genealogical charts where one of them is an ancestor of the other. So there is this complicated genealogical question to figure out who is Thado and who is not. Okay, but we are not going to get into that. But I'll tell you the practical effect of these things. So Kipgen and Haukip, we know, are very large clans, right? So right, all around us, we see many people with surnames Kipgen and Haukip. So it turns out that Kipgens did not believe that they were part of the Thado clan before the Second World War. But after the Second World War, they switched their stand and said, we are part of Thado. That means they accepted, the seniority of Thado. Haukips, on the other hand, apparently half of them believe that they are Thado, and the other half are not. They don't believe they're part of Thado. Okay, so there are all these tricky, complicated questions about who is Thado and who is not. Now, there are even more senior clans. So Chongtu is believed to have been the progenitor of the majority of the Thado community. And there are people who claim that they predate Chongtu. So Lung Kim, for example, is one of these clans who think they're even, they're more ancient than Thado. So those people now call themselves Kongsai. So that is a newly minted kind of community of clans. It's not newly minted, it has been around. It's mentioned in Manipur Chronicles hundreds of times. Not hundreds, but plenty of times. But Kongsai is now considered a very senior clan, to which, senior to Haukip, Kipken, and everybody that we hear about, right? So these people all descend from Chongtu. So that is the reason the term cookie has been used so much, because there are all these tricky questions of who is Thado and who is not. And the people who consider themselves senior clans of Thado find it very offensive to be called Thado. And therefore, they're happy to be called cookie. Now, what is cookie? Cookie is supposed to be the term used for all the Kuki-Chin language speaking people in India. In Myanmar or Burma, they're called Chin. In India, they were called cookie. These are not, the British popularized these terms, but they didn't invent them. These terms already existed among the region. So on the Indian side, Bengalis and Assamese used to call them cookies. On the Burmese side, the Burmese people used to call them Chins, the same group of people. And that's why when the linguists formulated, the language families, etc., they call them Kuki Chin languages, right? So the Kuki and Chin are bracketed together, not because they're separate, but because they're two different terms used for the same thing. So in India, we don't need to call anybody Chin because Chin is a Burmese term. And in India, we should be happily using Indian term, which is Kuki. So Kuki covers all the Kuki Chin language speaking people in India. It also covers similar people in Bangladesh because Bengalis were the ones who first used this term. Whereas in Burma, they would be called Chins. So Kuki covers everybody. But there is a but here, a serious but, which is that after India became independent, these tribes did not agree on the term Kuki. The reason being that Thado is a very large subgroup. And so the other tribes thought the Thado-speaking Kukis would dominate, and they wanted to be, have their own freedom, their own identity, etc. So they split off. So that's one of the reasons why Kuki community is not integrated, because of these tensions of dominance and non-dominance that arose at the beginning of, independent India, 1947, 1946, those times. So, okay, so this has probably gotten a bit too long, but the upshot is that when people say we are cookies, they're being inclusive, right? They're including all the Kuki Chin language speaking people of India, including Mizos, even though Mizos don't use the term cookie. They're also included when people say we are cookie. They're also including Mizos. They're including the tribes in Bangladesh. They may or may not be including the tribes in Burma. They have never been called cookie by anybody, so they may not feel like they belong to the cookie family. And so that is the term that everybody is happy with on the Indian side, or at least in the Manipur. So Kuki in P theoretically should represent all the Kuki Chin language speaking people, except that these other tribes who don't like the Kuki term, they have kind of gone away from it. So they have their own tribe councils. There's a Paite tribe council, Waifei tribe council, etc. And therefore, efforts have been made to bring all these people together, and that is why the Kuki-Zo Council has been formed. Under the Kuki-Zo Council, Kuki Inpi is part of it. There is a Thado Inpi General Headquarters that is part of it. Paite Tribe Council also used to be part of it until recently, but then, now they're hesitant. Waifei Tribe Council is part of it. The chairman of KZC is a Waifei leader. And I think all the others, Gangtes, Zos, etc., they're also part of Kuki-Zo Council. Okay. So that is now currently the leading body of the entire community. And so they, in my opinion, they are, the authority to decide whether this new outfit belonging, started by Lamjathang is legitimate or not. And they should be investigating whether this outfit is representing the people that it claims to represent or whether it does not represent them. So, next time, hopefully you can interview somebody from Kuki-Zo Council who can tell you their viewpoint on this.
You gave a thorough explanation. I have never, came across anybody who can give like very clear and authentic kind of explanation as you did. No wonder you're a, academician. You have known so much, and thank you so much for educating me and my audience. So we've according to your explanation, this Michael Lamjathang and his team are illegitimate, or they are invalid kind of thing. So then what do we do now? I mean, what is way forward or future course of action to these people?
Well, I have raised questions with Kuki-Zo Council. I have raised questions, and they said they will contact Thado Inpi General Headquarters and get their reaction. So we need to wait to hear from these people. And secondly, we also need to look into what is it that these new Thado organizations, what are they doing, right? That's
What do they
also,
want?
well, only they can explain what do they want, but we can only observe what they do, right? So they went to Imphal, presumably under security, okay, so which is fine because, we have president's rule and the government of India wants all communities to talk to each other. So they started talking to the Meitei groups. They also talked to them in Delhi a few months ago, right? So this is not the first meeting they had with Meiteis. And Michael Lamjathang seems to have been friendly with Meiteis all through, even though there was tension, on the ground, there was actually killing going on between the two communities. Michael Lamjathang seems to have been happy talking to Meiteis all through, which is fine, because he's essentially Biren Singh's man. He is BJP spokesperson. And he probably does what Biren Singh, asks him to do. He's not an independent person. He's a BJP party person. And he would be executing BJP party agenda. And if that agenda is to make peace and he's doing, what he can for that purpose, that is fine. But I don't know if the community believes that what he's doing is the right thing to do and whether that's what they want, right? Because Kokomi and Arambai Tengol, they were the two organizations that cookies have been complaining about throughout the violence. Kokomi has, announced that we are going to have a national war, Manipuri war against what they call Chin Cookie narco terrorists. So they say not all Chin Cookie, right? Why do they use the term Chin Cookie? Chin Cookie is not there anywhere, right? They invented this term. Cookies in India are called cookies, right? Only in Myanmar they're called Chin. So they seem to be suggesting that, these people are Myanmarese by saying that they're Chin Cookie. They should be calling them just Cookie. So that term itself is offensive. Anyway, so, the Lamjathang camp is now talking to Kokomi, who declared a war against cookies, basically. And they're talking to Arambai Tengol, which has executed that war for the last 2.5 years. So what has happened? Has Arambai Tengol apologized for all the things they have done? Has Kokomi said that they made an error in declaring national war? How is peace
Not
going to
about
happen?
apologizing. It's about, accountability. They should accept that they were the one, who started all these things. And then this is purely unethical on the humanitarian point of view. You killed them, you brutally tortured, mercilessly killed, you burned their house, you chased them away. We have seen the video. They paraded our women naked. And those culprits, their faces were crystal clear in the video. And then despite doing all these things, and then the dust hasn't settled yet, but now they are advocating for peace and then portraying the cookie as, something else. This is purely unethical. And sometimes I wonder, like, there is no human rights commission in this world, like, who could look after all these people. What's happening? Let the dust settle. We are already separated geographically, physically. So it has to be announced in the parliament, in the legislature. So without doing all this, without processing all this, they are now advocating for peace. I really hope that this conversation or this particular episode reach out to the higher authority and then they do something about it. It pains my heart. How about people, I have been visiting relief camps and then their pathetic conditions, no proper food, sanitation and everything. And with all this, no, we're not okay. We're not ready for peace. And then it's a complete nightmare, waking up next to the people, your next door neighbor is a Meitei, and then and then you remember, you vividly remember what they did to you. So it's practically impossible. And then this Michael Lamjathang and his team, 16 to 17 people, let him go, leave there, settle there. But the entire community is not ready. So let the dust settle, let there be settlement, and we will decide peace. That's my point of view, my humble point of view.
Yeah, I agree entirely.
Mhm.
And the cookie leaders have been, talking to the center,
Mhm.
and they're going as fast as they possibly can,
Mhm.
from both the government side and from the community side. And so these people are kind of trying to make it all go away and make it look like,
It
oh,
will
everything
never
is
happen.
fine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The damage,
So that's
the
basically what they're
wound
trying.
was so deep. It is like not healing yet. So no, there's no peace. Of course, everyone wants peace. Nobody wants to die, but somehow they killed us. So we shed so many blood. There's this saying, give me blood and I will give you freedom. So we shed enough blood for our freedom. So without that, we don't want peace. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you again in the coming
Thank
episodes.
you.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right.